Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Firdaus bin Talib dari Grup 24. Pada hari ini saya ingin membentangkan tentang eksperimen 4, iaitu tentang MSB 1 dan MSB 2. Okey, pertama sekali kita perlu tahu untuk masuk ke bilik MSB kita perlu dilengkapkan dengan PPE, iaitu Personal Protective Equipment. Seperti safety helmet, fireproof suit, electrical glove and electrical insulation boot. Okay. Before we start to turn on the MSB, we have noticed that we have notified the consumer. Next, we have to get permit from the MSB leader. Second, we have checked the safety, which is we have fire extinguisher, schematic diagram and logbook. And also we have bring tools and equipment. Okay, firstly, I'm gonna present about how to turn on the MSB 1 and MSB 2. Okay, firstly, we need to know that before we turn on the MSB, we have to make sure that the load is in off condition, and the power meter factor is off condition, and the SCB is off condition. So after that we can turn on the incoming supply. In the diagram, this is MSB 1. MSB 1 ada circuit breaker, busbar supply, main supply, kWh meter, ADTML, power meter factor, and this is load. But ammeter, voltmeter and power factor, I combine it, MSB 1 and MSB 2. MSB 1, ammeter, voltmeter and power factor tak ada, tapi untuk MSB 2 3 alat ni ada. So saya combinekan sekali je lah, senang untuk present. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna present about the procedure to turn on the MSB 1. Firstly, we have to turn on the power supply. Next, we can check the main supply from the indicator light. If the light is the indicator light is menyala, so that is the incoming supply. Second, we connect the SCB to the busbar supply. We have connect the SCB. The indicator light will also turn light. Okay. Second, we get the charging handle in the SCB places. Charging handle is such like that, macam batang sini. Okay. Lepas tu, we must make sure the SCB is off. Okay. After that, we have looked at the SCB status, which is in isolated condition. The display is in here. We have checked the SCB in isolated condition. Then we take the charging handle and put it in the slot and turn it clockwise slowly until the SCB pull in. Pushing sampai the SCB masuk ke dalam. Lepas tu, then the SCB will insert to the SCB canal. Now the SCB is connected to the busbar supply. Okay, then we put back the charging handle inside the SCB ni, in the slot lah. Okay. Okay, next, to give our busbar supply, we must turn on the SCB. After turn on the SCB, we must check the coil. If the coil is discharged, we must charge manually by pulling up and down this charging handle. Macam kita naikkan ke atas ke bawah lah, untuk supaya discharge akan change to charge condition. Okay, next, now our SCB is in charge condition, and off condition. So we can turn on the SCB right now. Make sure before turn on the SCB, you standing on the harbor mat and in front of the SCB compound. Okay, so right now the SCB is in on condition. After we turn on, then we can check our bus bar supply if they energized. If they energized kat sini, kalau they energized kat sini ada keluar lampu. Okay. After that, we can give our consumer side our supply. Before we turn on the MCCB, to give our consumer supply, we must inform them. We must inform them that we want to supply the incoming to the this activity is to prevent from the accident happen. After inform them, we can give them supply by turn on the MCCB. First, we must turn on power meter factor so that the power factor regulator can monitor the power factor. After that, we can turn on the MCCB and we can check the current status at our system. So right now our MSB1 is energized and ready to give supply to the consumer side. Okay, so for the MSB2 lebih kurang sama prosedurnya, cuma dia ada voltmeter dengan power factor. Apabila kita, untuk saya terangkan sikit untuk MSB2 je lah. Semua step sama dari awal kecuali sebelum, after kita open the power supply, we can check the voltmeter. Lepas tu check the voltmeter, power factor, ammeter, check, so they can on. Okay, after that, all the procedure is same until the bus bar supply energized. After the bus bar supply energized, we can turn on the SCB and voltmeter stable. After that, we turn on the MCCB and check the current changes at this meter. Okay, so lastly, both of MSB1 and MSB2 is ready to work and work independently. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Emilia Alika binti Rudi and my matric number is AE190076. So now I want to explain about bus bar coupling of MSB1 and MSB2. Okay, before performing maintenance in MSB1 and 2, we must ensure that all of the load in MSB1 and 2 are in the off position, with the current status equal to the 0 ampere. Okay, we can now turn the air circuit breaker off. Okay, number 1, by pressing the red button, the top of bus bar light indicator is turned off. Number 2, the MSB1 is only connected to the power supply. Then in order to discharge the MSB1 and 2, we must switch the power supply off as well. Number 3, remove a charging handler from the ACB compartment and place it in a slot below the ACB, and then turn the handle anti-clockwise until the status change to off or isolate, indicating that the ACB current is completely disconnected from the bus bar. Number 4, we can then take the ACB outside to carry out the maintenance procedure in a safe environment when MSB1 is down for maintenance, and we can use MSB2 to feed the consumer load to MSB1. Number 5, remove the LCB key and insert it into the isolator of MSB1 and 2 for coupling purpose, and we need to fit MSB1 by MSB2. Thus well turn on isolator C2 on MSB2 and then switch on isolator on MSB1, which is an upstream to downstream operation. Meanwhile, we can keep an eyes on MS1 bus bar status. If it light up, it's ready to feed MSB1 consumer load with power from MSB2. Number 6, at the low voltage switchboard, manually turn on the power load switch and the power factor capacitor bank switch before supplying power to the consumer unit. Number 7, it is necessary for maintenance. Repeat step 1 until 7 for MSB2 bus bar coupling. Next, for normal supply restore. Okay, for the restoration of power supply and operation in the LVSV system, to finish the process outline we need to take a few action. Number 1, notifying the consumer that we can turn off the power supply switch and the power factor capacitor bank switch at the low voltage switch board. Number 2, we must check the current status of the MSB, which should be 0 ampere, and then at MSB1 turn on the isolator C1 and check to see the bus bar is de-energized. Meanwhile, we can turn on the isolator at the MSB2 and then remove the isolator key and replace it with its original location. And then finally, we will remove the isolator key from MSB1 and replace it in original location. And then the LCB key can then we withdraw and insert into the LCB compartment, where it can be turned clockwise to the indicate unlock or isolate state. Next, we will turn on the power supply to the power MSB1 from the isolator incoming supply. So we need turn on it the LVSB side. And then after turning on the power supply, we can check the voltage supply and remove a charging handler from the LCB compartment and place it in a slot below the LCB, and turn the handle clockwise until the status change to on, indicating that the LCB current is now connected to the bus bar. And then return the charging handler to its default position. If the coil is discharged, we must manually pull up and down for the charging handler situated on the side of the coil charging indication. And then continue with the manual charging step until the coil indicates that it is fully charged. The LCB switch can then be safely turned on when the bus bar is turned on. The red, yellow, and blue light indicator at the top of the LCB will illuminate. And finally, make sure the power supply and bus bar indicator are both lit up when the LCB and power supply switches are both set to on, and the MSB will light up in the red, yellow, and blue, indicating that it is ready to connect to a consumer load. And at the low voltage switch board, manually turn on the power load switch and the power factor capacitor bank switch before supplying power to the consumer unit. And then we must list down all the notes in the logbook during the coupling and maintenance, and switch on switch on or off process.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So my name is Fitri Muhaimin. Today I will explain the procedure or process of normal supply restore in LSVP. So firstly, we need to inform our consumer that we want to turn off the supply. Next, we turn off the power supply and power factor capacitor in MSB1. Then we check the current status of MSB1 and it should be 0. Then turn on the isolator C1 in MSB1 and remove the isolator key. Then check the light at busbar supply to make sure it on. So then turn on the isolator C2 in MSB2 and remove the isolator key. Next, we key in the isolator key C1 and C2 to MSB1. Then we remove SCB key from MSB1 and key in it to the SCB. Then after that we need to give the MSB1 a power supply from the isolator. Then we can make sure the power supply is a power supply by see the indicator light and we can check the voltage. Next, after we check the status, we can make it connected by insert the charging handle into the slot. We must turn it clockwise until the status change into connected condition. Then SCB is connected to the bus bar, so we put back the charging handle into the slot. Next, we must check the coil and make sure the coil is discharged. Then we can charge it manually by pull the charging handle up and down until it charges to charge position. Then we can turn on the SCB. Next, we turn on the power factor capacitor first. Then we turn on the MCCB or load and check the current status of the system. So it's already used to, so the MSB is already ready to use. And lastly, we need to record all the work that we have done to the file.